Hey, friends, and welcome to another episode of Divine Direction. I'm Ashley Nadine.
And I'm Christina Williams.
I love this woman. I'm so grateful she came into my life. I always say if you are looking for a mentor, I definitely think Pastor Christina
Oh,
is
God
amazing.
bless you.
She's the pastor of Harbor Light Church in Costa Mesa. I prayed for her for 10 years, and then finally she walked into my life, so I'm so grateful.
Oh, I'm so
She drops
grateful.
so many wisdom. I could say she's a mic dropper because she drops a lot of wisdom and gems. So make sure that you have your notebook out, ready to take some notes. But today we're
No
gonna,
pressure.
yeah, none at all. This is all conversational, by the way.
Yes.
So today we're gonna actually be talking about friendships, and
Oh,
this is a
man.
good one.
It's a good one, especially for women.
It is because we talked a couple episodes about on jealousy, and now we're going to be talking about friendships. And I got to say that I'm actually very blessed. I have really good friends that love God, genuinely love God, but also I feel like they're my tribe. And when I say that, like when they say like find your tribe, it's like women that are also very business minded and they're very entrepreneurial, and I love that about them because we'll encourage each other in like our business like plans and things like that, and like what does the word say, things like that, where like I don't think other friends really would care about the godly aspect of things,
Yeah.
or they wouldn't bring up the word of God. So
Yeah.
I'm very grateful to have some
Thank
friends.
God. Thank
Yeah.
God. Well, and I think it's essential for us to be deliberate about relationships because some friends are not healthy friends.
No.
Some friends lure you into doing things you shouldn't be doing or tell you things you shouldn't do or bad influences when we are, we tell our kids those friends are bad influence. We can have bad influence friends when we get older.
Yeah.
And I think Jesus, it's very interesting about Jesus is he was amongst the crowds, the crowds, and then he had a smaller group, but then he had like the three. And I believe there are people in our lives that God brings that are the three for us, the people that we trust our hearts to, that we can open our hearts to. But I also think we have to be guarded because not everybody can handle it. At least in my life,
true. Yeah.
not everybody can handle your life and your honesty and have that same level of how
Like
can I say it,
respect.
faithfulness
Yeah.
and integrity. I have a few very, very close friends, one in particular that, man, anything I'm going through, I can call her. Anything. She
Yeah.
knows my life.
Yeah.
I know her life. We pick up the phone and we can just minister to each other and edify and encourage one another. And I just know she always has my back.
Yeah.
I always have her back. But I also have friends that I've had to empower. And by that, I mean, I have some friends that are very close, but I've had to empower them to speak into my life. Like, please don't just massage me. Help me grow. Hold me accountable. Speak into my life righteousness. I've opened that door to them because sometimes I think we can have shallow relationships because
Yeah.
somebody will think, well, I don't want to tell her that. I'd like to tell her, but, we'll just talk about her behind her back. But I don't want those friends. I want friends that can absolutely be honest with me.
Yeah.
And so I've said to a few of my friends, don't massage me. I want you to help me know the truth because the truth will set me free. So be honest.
That's
and
good.
I've empowered people.
Yeah. Well, I remember too when, before I was a believer, I had to let all of my friends go.
Oh, everybody.
Oh,
Yes,
every
me
single
too.
friend that I had,
Me too.
I had to let go of. And that was a very hard season because it was just like me and God. And I would just like pray all the time, like, God, like, will you bring good friends into my life, godly friends that believe in you? Because it's hard to find strong Christian
Yeah.
women that are really walking it out. Like,
Yeah.
you can find the ones that say they're Christian, but they're still living like the world, but to find real godly women that will not be jealous of you as well, like, that's so hard to
Yeah.
find. So, like I said, but it really did come with letting go. And I remember in the very beginning of my walk with God, I would still try to party with them, and then still try to be the Sunday Christian, they call it. And I just got to this point where I was like, you know what? At all cost, I've got to let it go because I didn't even feel right. Like, I started feeling weird being fake. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I was trying to, like, find, this new belief that I had, and these new standards and boundaries and all this stuff, and then at the same time I was trying to live like my old ways, and it just, there comes a point where it's going to come with you letting go.
Yeah.
And there's this saying that says elevation requires separation.
Yeah.
And if you truly want to be elevated in life in many areas and even closer to God, that does come with letting people go.
Yeah.
Certain relationships.
And people that, I think that's also the cost of following Christ at the
Mm.
beginning, is you were living an old life. If you're going to live a new life, you can't hold on to people harder than you hold on to Jesus. And so when I held on to Jesus, there were people that I had to let go. I'm with you. I had to walk away from all my friends. And it was interesting. I remember the day I was sitting in the back of the car with a whole bunch of friends, and I heard the voice of God say, "This is the last time you're with them." And I just knew I had to
Yeah.
walk away from it. And I did. Now, I thought it was very interesting, though. I made that cut. I followed the Lord. I ended up in Bible college. And because I was going to designing college at the time, and God just really led me to Bible college. And what was interesting is some of those friends ended up coming to Christ
Oh, okay.
and coming out to Bible college. So it didn't mean I didn't see them, but I had to change the aspect of how I saw them. So
Right.
they came to join me in my walk
That's
with God.
awesome.
I didn't join them in an
Yeah.
old way of living.
They came back around.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it's hard because it's like you don't want to be judgmental
No.
because they're not where you're at, but at the same time, if it's not serving, good, like
That's
it's
right.
not noble and it's not pure and righteous, and you're trying to live this different life, it's hard. Like even in recovery, they always would say, like, you can't, if you're trying to break free from addiction, you can't still hang out with the addicts, right?
Wow.
If you're trying to be sober, you can't go hang out at a bar.
No.
Right? If you're trying to be free from pornography, you can't be on your phone alone all the time. Like there's certain parameters and boundaries and things that you're going to have to do different now. If you want
I
something
love that.
you've never had, you've got to do things you've never done.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
you want to be sober, you got to do something different. You want to have better relationships. You got to, and here's another thing too, is work on those qualities in yourself that you would want in others.
Yeah.
I've seen the transformation come. Like I have a certain friend, I've known her half of my life, and I love her dearly, and she's a real one. She's a real one. She's my inner circle, right? But I know she is how she is, and that's okay. And I love her with that imperfection.
Yeah.
But what I've done is I try to overexert that area of weakness that she has, and I try to show her how to be, because I know that if I keep on being that example, she'll start doing that back. And I've noticed the little change. Like she'll start doing that little thing that I'm doing. She starts doing it back to me. So she's growing in that certain area.
I love that.
So, and
love
again,
that.
she's worth the investment, in my
Yeah.
opinion. There's
Yeah.
certain people you're just like, dude, I'm not going to waste my time, trying to cultivate or grow this relationship, but she's worth it. And so I've noticed that gentleness and that loyalty that I've exemplified, she's starting to do back now. So it's really interesting to see
And
that.
I want to clarify that statement because I
Mhm.
understand it. She's worth it. There are some relationships that are like you buying a newspaper. They come into your life, but they're not the long-term relationship. But there's other people that are like buying a car that you go, you know what? This is an investment relationship. We may have some hiccups, we may have some problems, but they're worth the effort because this is going to be a long-term relationship. And I think in relationships, it's not people aren't worth it. And I knew that was your heart.
Right.
But it's that I don't see this really becoming something that we can run the life's course with.
Right.
I have friends like that or people in my life where I realized they couldn't handle the level of friendship with me for lots of reasons. It's not easy, first of all, to be friends with a pastor, but it's also because, I'll give you an example. The other night, we sat down with a group of friends for dinner. we ordered our food, and within seconds, we got a call from the police that somebody'd run into our car, and we had to say goodbye, everybody.
Right.
And friends have to be cool with that. Not
Right.
everybody can handle emergencies that come
Mm-hmm.
up in pastors' lives. That's just one example. So I understand that. I don't have any judgments. It's just not what people can handle. I also think with a pastor, we get, people come into your life and they're already immediately convicted.
Right.
I met somebody at an airport one day. Her and I were having lunch. We really kicked it off. We both were on layovers. We're visiting. And I'm not kidding. An hour into this conversation, she looks at me and goes, "Well, what do you do?" And I go, "Oh, I'm a pastor." And she goes, "Oh my gosh, I better get to my gate."
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
I'm not kidding.
Yeah, no, I remember that we went to we went to that place like avocados or something like that, guacamole or something. I don't know, guacamole amigos.
I
Yeah,
love
in
that
Newport.
place. Guacamigos.
Yeah, guacamigos. Thank you, thank
Love
you.
that place.
So we go there, we have our lunch or whatever. We go into the bathroom. There's these cute girls, they're all dressed up and they have their little tight, cute dresses on.
Yeah.
And the moment we said the word pastor, like they were like done. They were out of that bathroom in like seconds. I was like, whoa, it's like the ants just cleared out or something. I was like, what happened? Like they scattered. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you go, did you notice at the moment you said pastor, they were gone? I go, now that yeah. Anyways, it's very interesting how people have these preconceptions.
Well,
of
it's
like,
immediate conviction.
it really
of
is.
their life.
Yeah.
I get it, and I understand that. But the people that can really, the friendships that you have that you develop that are going to be long term. I was thinking about this the other day. What is that scripture? A brother is born for adversity. A friend loves at all times, but a brother is born for adversity. People can love you, but when you go through really tough times, that really is the place where you find out who your friends are. We always say, I found out who my friends were.
Right.
Well, it's when you go through difficult times, who can weather that with you, that you can really find out who's there.
It's
and
so
you know
true.
what? No judgment when people aren't. But the people that are gold.
Yeah.
Are gold.
I've always said when you're moving,
Yeah.
the people that show up with the boxes, and they do the hard work, like I was always that friend that would show up when other people were moving, but then it was time for me. I had like one friend, and I'm like, oh, I'm there for all you guys. Why aren't you here for me when I'm moving? It'd be like drive me crazy, But again, those are some of my old friends. Now I know that I think the friends in my life now, I do think they would show up.
Of course.
I really do. So,
Yeah.
but relationships are so important. And I heard someone once say that if you're like the smartest person in the room, or you're the most successful person in the room, or whatever it is in your friend group, then you're never going to grow, right? So you should always have someone that's doing better than you in your friend group, because
Yes.
that's how you learn and grow. Like maybe someone's strength might be in finance, but yours isn't, or maybe someone's strength is in a marriage, but you're not married. Like there's certain things like what you call a double blessing, right? And those are the best relationships where that person's not just constantly withdrawing, or you're not constantly depositing.
Yes.
But it's a
Oh,
double
man.
blessing.
Yeah.
And you're blessing. It's like you and I'm able to bless your life in a certain way, and you're able to bless my
Yes,
life. And those are
yes.
some of the best relationships, the most
100%.
amazing, godly given relationships that you can have.
I love that you said that, because honestly, if you're in friendships where it's you giving, and someone taking, well, I think that's called codependency. Is that? But anyway, you can't be that person. You can't always find yourself in relationships where it's give, and nothing comes back to you. Even in my life, I always laugh because during COVID, everybody was like, oh, they're first responders, and I'm like, I'm a first responder.
Yeah.
I mean, we're usually the first call when anybody goes through. And I've had people call me before they called the hospital when they had a heart attack. I mean, that's crazy pressure. But the reality is that when you're there for people and they can call you and count on you, that's one thing. But you cannot be in relationships with people where it's all give me, give me, give me, support me, support me, support me, because that's draining.
Yeah.
And so I have my close friends understand that it's a give and take. It's both I support you, you support me, and we're together in it. And, I think of some of I just tell you real quick, I have a very long-term friend that I absolutely love to bits. When my mother was dying, she was there all the time. And the day my mom died, she came over and said, "Can I make you dinner?" Which was huge because I didn't want to leave my mom passed away in our home, but I didn't want to leave her bedside. And she came and she stood at that bed with me as my mom was passing with my family. Well, her husband just died recently. And the minute I found out her husband passed away, I was on a plane the next day because we've had that support relationship. So I think it's also important that you don't find yourself with friends that are always just taking.
Yeah.
That it's a give and take in a relationship.
Yes, that's so good. It's like that. It reminds me of Jonathan and David. It says they were knit at the soul. Like they were knit together. It's almost like a marriage, but obviously not really. I'm just saying that it's a covenant. It's like such a deep relationship. But one thing I also think that over the years that I've learned is that there would be times where I would try to put somebody that maybe wasn't meant to be a friend, but maybe I was supposed to disciple them. Or I was supposed to help them, and knowing what type of relationship that person has entered your life and like where they're supposed to be. Because looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I wasn't supposed to make that person my friend. I was supposed to be discipling them. I was supposed to be leading them to Christ or being like, a leadership figure. And instead I wanted a friend, and I tried to put them in a friend, and it didn't work out. And God showed me over the years that's not where that person was supposed to be in your life.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be in your life, but you put them in place that I didn't want them. They weren't supposed to be in the inner circle. They were supposed to be in the outer courts. But you wanted to bring them in close.
There you go.
So
that's really, really good. That's really good. And, that doesn't say anything against them. It's just in relationship. I also believe when I read the story of Ruth and Naomi, I believe that in every relationship you hit a crisis point where you could easily just go, I'm walking away from this. I don't need this. Or you go, no, we're pressing in. We're pressing in. We're going to make this. This is going to work. And I think when you become the person that's willing to long suffer with a friend and say, you're worth so much in my life, I'm going to work on this. When I had cancer, one of the first things I did was ask the Lord to show me who in my life I needed to make things right with, because I didn't want to have any messy stuff. I wanted to do everything I could. Some relationships, you need to understand, you can't make them right. You can't.
Right.
You can't. That the other person can't handle it. They're not there. They, whatever. But in this relationship, I called this person and I said, I want to meet with you. And I looked at her and said, we could sit here and talk about how your kids are and how my kids are, but I don't want to talk about the fluff. I want to talk about where this went south and how we can repair it.
Good.
And I had to say some hard things. I said, you weren't there when I needed you. You didn't walk in truth with me. And she repented. We cried together, and we made it right. And you know what? It was wild because 6 months later, she passed away very suddenly.
Oh, wow.
And I was glad that I had pressed through and said, this relationship is worth something to me. I'm going to find a way to walk through the crisis.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to happen in relationships. You're going to have times of crisis, but how you handle it in the Lord becomes really important.
It
really
is.
important.
Yeah. It's funny because I think in the beginning of our relationship, we faced a crisis.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
So that God really
Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a situation that happened that seemed very unfair, and it was because I referred somebody that didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and so we had to walk through this thing together.
Yeah, we did.
And we loved on that person,
Yes.
and that person has grown, and
Yes.
that grew our relationship.
Yes.
But we could have thrown in the towel and been like, forget this pastor, forget this lady,
Yeah.
But I remember calling you and being like, I'm so sorry. I didn't see this coming. It was.
And I
was
remember that
tough.
conversation. What I admired most about you was your purity and your true heart. You were like, I'm going to be honest here.
I
I
just,
loved you for that.
yeah, yeah. And something that's coming up on my heart right now is one of my old mentors. I had been with her for some many years, and it was very successful. I helped grow her ministry, and it was just amazing. But it got to the point where God said, "I'm calling you to a different territory."
Oh,
It was like it
interesting.
wasn't anything between her and I. It was
Good.
that God just said, "It's time. I want you over here now." And I was like, "Lord, I didn't want to let go of that relationship." And she got so offended that I left her
Oh,
ministry. But it wasn't like I wanted to. It
yeah.
was that God literally gave me this mandate to, like, go and serve. And I started this ministry called Limitless. That's when I started my human trafficking
Yeah.
awareness, and it
Yeah.
was blessed, and God just did a lot.
Yeah.
But she never ever did talk to me ever since then.
Isn't that interesting?
It is. And when I think about some of the people, because I used to have my own ministry called Limitless, I'm still cool with pretty much 95% of the people that have grown on to other, to do
Right.
other things.
Right.
And it just comes to a point where it's like you cannot control people. You know what I mean? You
No,
can't. You gotta
and
just.
I'm glad you brought this up because I was mentoring a girl.
Mm-hmm.
She came to me with a very similar problem, and I got a vision from the Lord, and I said, you know how rockets, when they take off, the booster has to
Mm,
go so the rocket can keep going,
yeah.
but you can't get a rocket off the ground without the booster. And I
Mm,
said, some people in our lives are the booster.
mm,
They get us going, and then we take off. They've got
mm,
to go and find their own way as we
mm-hmm.
find our own way. Should there be animosity? No.
Right.
We're all serving the Lord.
Right.
So we can go back and say, I'm so blessed
Right.
to see what God's done in your life here.
Yeah.
And we don't have to, like, I think that's one place where the church fails is that
Yeah.
when we don't go to church
Mm-hmm.
together or when we're not on the same ministry or whatever, now we're not friends.
Mm.
I don't like that.
No.
I don't like that. Grady and
Mm-mm.
I have counted on one hand the people who have left our church and still remain friends.
Yeah.
And it's why?
It's
Why
yeah.
shouldn't we
Yeah. Why
be?
not? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that about you guys. It's just because you guys take time off to do your own stuff too, and that's
Yeah.
a good thing. It's a
Yes.
healthy thing.
Yes.
You need that.
Yeah.
In order to operate at your best capacity, you need it as a pastor too. You're
Yes.
constantly pouring into people, and you need that to be rejuvenated
Yeah.
and get that alone time. Even Jesus went alone to the mountain and got alone with God so he can come back and do miracles, signs, and wonders.
Yes.
You guys need that too. I just think that I personally think that people who serve God in that way should be some of the most blessed people. I
Oh,
truly
I
do.
love you.
Like, I get excited when you are like, "Oh, we're going to go to, Canada, or we're going to go on this trip." I'm like, "Yes." Like, I think it's amazing. I get excited.
Yeah.
I
Thank
feel like
you,
you should be blessed.
Jesus.
You guys go
Thank
through
you,
so much.
Jesus.
Like,
Yeah. That's
oh my gosh, I was telling my
what,
friend the other day, I go, Pastor Christina and Grady, I'm like, poor things. I'm like, they're just trying to enjoy their family, and then they get a call like, I have to go home, and
yeah.
it's like tend to the church, and I don't know. So I just feel like there's more blessings that are going to come your way. I think that
Thank
your
you,
later days are going to be
Jesus.
greater.
Praise
I
God.
think that you're just experiencing like the very tip of what God wants to do in
Praise
your life.
God. And I
Yeah.
believe that. I
Yeah.
believe that, Ashley. And I feel
Yeah.
like this is how I've always viewed it, that every person that God puts in my life is a divine encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And what does the Lord want to do with us? Like I always say that. Well, what does God want to do with this relationship? However it works.
Mm-hmm.
And in some, like you said, they're not long-term situations.
Yeah.
It was be
Mm-hmm.
blessed. I have a situation in my life right now, somebody that I've considered a friend, but they is the term, I think the term is passive aggressive,
Oh.
where they smile at you but then do
Oh,
completely.
like I
Yeah,
can't.
it's making
Yeah.
me crazy
Yeah.
because
Mm-mm.
they present a
Mm-hmm.
problem. I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, maybe you should try this, or what about this? And they'll nod and smile and completely do the opposite. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
and finally I realized I'm throwing my pearl before
That's
swine
right.
here.
Yeah.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
done now. Like I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to smile and love you, but I'm not going to try to ever
Yeah.
walk through a problem with you
Yeah.
because they smile and then they do
Yeah.
completely the opposite.
It's funny because you said something to me the other day, and you gently checked me. It was good though,
Oh,
but it
okay.
was because I was trying to give somebody like financial advice because I was like, my credit score is amazing right now, which
Yeah,
by the way, I'm
thank you,
very proud of
Jesus.
myself. Okay, so yeah, so my credit score is incredible. I worked very hard on it for many years. And so I was trying to give somebody advice, you know, and they didn't ask me for it. And so you said that kindly to me.
Oh,
You were like,
man.
well, you know, sometimes I realize that you don't give advice unless people ask for it. And I was like, oh, it is true,
Oh,
because
that's hard in
it was like
relationships.
I wanted to like help out, but then I'm like, okay, you're right. They didn't ask, and I probably shouldn't be trying to force this or like, you know, put my input in on it, whatever. So it was a me thing, you know, but you said that, and it checked me, and I was like, all right, cool. Like, it's true, you know?
I wish that wasn't born of a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
That's advice that comes from a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Because my heart is always to help people.
Yeah.
And I had a situation where a 30-year-old pastor that we were helping in an area, and I offered some advice, and I could tell that was like I had thrown a brick in his face, like he
Yeah.
didn't want to hear it.
Yep.
And I realized, that was unsolicited advice, and I need to shut up.
I need to get
He
better
didn't
at
he
that.
didn't want it,
Right.
and I shouldn't have offered it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part,
Mhm.
is when you care about people and you want to help them, realizing that some people, it's a blow to their pride. It's like,
Mhm.
I don't want to hear it. And I had never seen passive aggressive
Mhm.
that real before, but I came home to Grady the other night and I said, I can't,
Mhm.
I can't, I won't give any more advice there. I won't,
Yeah.
especially in the
Mhm.
area of health, because I've walked through so many health challenges, and
Mhm.
I'm of the conviction that God made this body. He can sure help me take care of it.
Right.
And so I try to help other
Mhm.
people, and I've learned,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Something I think that has helped, like I've heard this from like a therapist that said, what you can do is you can ask and say, you know, are you telling me because you want me to listen, or are you asking me because you want my advice?
Oh, I love that.
And
Oh,
then
I love
when
that.
they give that, then if they're looking for advice, then you go ahead and proceed with the advice. But sometimes, you know, we just want someone to listen to us,
Yeah.
and we don't always have to have the answer, you
And we
know?
don't always have to fix it.
No.
You're right.
Yeah.
Well,
So
try explaining that. I've been married almost 49 years this fall,
yeah.
and my husband and I love that Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus book, because it explains that we think completely differently, and a man
Mhm.
wants to come in and fix where a woman just wants to talk often. So many times we have that
Yeah.
conversation. I don't need to be fixed. I just want to talk about it.
That's right. Leave the fixing to the Lord, you guys. Anyways, we are so grateful that you joined us
Yes.
today. There have been some great topics, and make sure you like and subscribe to our channel if you like this content. We would be so grateful. And until next time, we are checking out.
Yeah, may God bless you. And listen, if you have any prayer requests, put them in the comments. We'll pray for you. We are here, and we're so grateful to be able to bring it to you and care for you in that way. So may God bless you richly.